You sit with a blank stare on your face. You've opened the fridge, looked at the dozens of things stacked inside, and closed it again. Nothing feels right. Nothing clicks. You're not hungry for food. You're hungry for certainty. But certainty is extinct now, lost beneath the mountain of choices that never stop growing. That empty feeling in your chest isn't confusion, it's grief. You're mourning the death of simplicity. You were raised to believe that more is always better, that freedom is measured in how many doors you can open, how many routes you can take, how many people you can be. You were told this is what makes life beautiful. And in a way, it's true, but no one ever warned you that every door you open slams 100 others shut. That every yes you say is 1,000 silent no's you never voiced but deeply feel. You scroll and scroll and scroll, through apps, through profiles, through products, through dreams. And it doesn't matter what you're looking for, a friend, a lover, a distraction. You feel the same thing, an ache that grows stronger with every swipe, because nothing satisfies, nothing stops you in your tracks anymore. You've become a connoisseur of indecision, an expert in the art of postponement. You can spend hours researching the best thing to buy, the right words to say, the perfect moment to act, but when the time comes, you freeze. And deep down, you know it's not about making the best choice. It's about being terrified to make any choice at all. Because choice means risk, choice means loss, choice means finality. And in a world that has turned your worth into your capacity to optimize, choosing anything less than perfect feels like failure. Even if it's beautiful, even if it's real. You look around you, everything is curated. Every meal, every outfit, every opinion is compared against a backdrop of better options. Social media floods your senses with images of people who seem to have chosen better. They look happier, more in love, more fulfilled, and in comparison, your life feels average. But here's the secret they're not telling you. They're just as lost as you are. They're stuck in the same loop, the same exhausting treadmill of seeking the best and never arriving, because the best doesn't exist. It's a moving target, a mirage. And you've been chasing it for so long you forgot what it means to simply be with something. To sit in silence with one decision and let it become part of you. Barry Schwartz once said that too much choice produces paralysis, not liberation. He was right. Because when you're drowning in possibility, every choice becomes a gamble. And even when you win, you wonder what you lost. This is the curse of modern freedom. You've traded the limitations of the past for the infinite pressure of the present. And in doing so, you've lost touch with one essential truth. You don't find peace in options, you find it in commitment. But commitment feels like death, doesn't it? Because to commit is to kill all the other versions of yourself you could have been. It's to close off the illusion of the parallel lives you dream of. It's to say, I choose this, and to mean it fully without flinching. And that kind of decisiveness feels terrifying. Because what if you're wrong? What if you love the wrong person, take the wrong job, live in the wrong city, pick the wrong moment to leap? You ask these questions over and over, and the world feeds your fear. It tells you to keep your options open. Don't settle. Don't commit. Don't close the door. You might miss out, and so you stay in limbo. You stay almost in love, almost committed, almost living, but not quite. Because if you never fully choose, then you never fully fail. But you also never fully feel. You've been living your life like a browser with too many tabs open, clicking through windows, saving things for later, postponing intimacy, delaying clarity, hoping that maybe someday something will click and it'll all feel obvious. But clarity doesn't come from clicking. It comes from stopping, from choosing, from closing the other tabs, even if it hurts. That's the thing no one tells you about freedom. It's not the ability to do everything. It's the ability to say, this is enough. And right now, you don't believe that anything is enough. You walk into a store and your brain goes into overdrive. There are 45 kinds of toothpaste, 20 brands of rice, 100 different face washes, and you think it's ridiculous, but still, you stand there, paralyzed, because no matter what you choose, it could have been better. You go on a date, and it's sweet, comfortable, real, but something in you whispers, is there someone else out there who would make your heart beat faster, someone smarter, funnier, more whatever? And so you don't fall deeper. You don't give it your all. You hover, float, because investing means risking, and risking means regret. You hate regret, but here's the paradox. The more you try to avoid regret, the more of it you create, because the one regret you can never escape is the regret of never fully living. Kierkegaard knew this. He wrote about the despair of possibility, that when everything is possible, nothing feels worth doing, because you're always aware of what else could have been, and that awareness, while it looks like wisdom, is often just another form of fear. You think being cautious protects you, but really, it's starving you, making your life thinner, quieter, shallower. You've become a collector of experiences rather than a liver of them. You try to sample everything but taste nothing. You move from job to job, hobby to hobby, person to person, not because you're curious, but because you're afraid to stop. Because stopping feels like surrender. But maybe surrender isn't weakness. Maybe it's the only way to build something solid. Because here's the truth you're running from. Depth requires repetition. Depth requires time. Depth requires choosing the same thing over and over, not because it's perfect, but because it's yours. And that's what you're really craving. Something yours, not borrowed, not compared, not optimized. Just yours. And it only becomes yours when you choose it again and again and again. Not with the manic urgency of what if I lose it, but with the quiet confidence of this is where I belong. That's the opposite of misery. That's peace. But peace can't be found in endless options. It's found in the narrowing, in the letting go, in the radical act of saying, I don't need everything, I just need this. This moment, this person, this decision, this life. You've been taught that saying no is rejection. But sometimes, saying no is reverence. It's how you honor what matters. It's how you make space for what stays. You wake up every day with the potential to start fresh. That's what they say, right? A new day, a new beginning, a new chance to become who you really are. But instead, you wake up with a kind of heaviness. Not the kind that keeps you in bed physically, but the kind that keeps you trapped mentally. Like you're already exhausted by the weight of having to choose your way into a meaningful day. You stare at your closet, 40 shirts, 10 jackets, different shoes for every occasion, but somehow you feel like you have nothing to wear. Because it's not about clothes. It's about how none of them feel quite right for the version of yourself you're trying to be today. And that version keeps changing, like you're trying on masks instead of identities, costumes instead of commitments. The root of your dissatisfaction isn't that you're making bad choices. It's that you're standing in a field of infinite choices with no map, no compass, and no way to know if a better path lies just 5 steps away. So you hesitate, you tinker, you postpone the moment you finally decide, because choosing feels like losing, even when you win. And the worst part? You're doing this all alone. The more choices you have, the more personal the responsibility becomes. If you fail, it's your fault. If you're unhappy, it's your fault. There's no one else to blame anymore. Not your parents, not your culture, not society. You had the freedom, you had the options, and you still feel hollow. It's a special kind of despair. Kierkegaard wrote that despair isn't just sadness. It's the sickness of the self that refuses to be itself. You feel that sickness every time you look at your life and wonder if it's really yours or just a collage of borrowed ideas, trends, and fears. You're always halfway in and halfway out, never fully owning anything. And so your soul becomes malnourished. Because the soul doesn't need variety, it needs consistency, depth, devotion. But devotion feels dangerous in a world like this. You've been trained to fear being stuck, to view long-term commitment as a form of self-betrayal, to think that the longer you stay with something, the more opportunities you're missing out on. So you keep moving, keep upgrading, keep hoping the next thing will finally feel right. But it never does, because you're trying to use freedom to fill a hole that only meaning can fill. And meaning doesn't live in options. It lives in the spaces you water every single day, with your attention, your time, your care. The grass isn't greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you choose to stay and tend it. But staying requires trust, not in the thing, but in yourself. And that's what you've lost. Not freedom, not choice, not direction, trust. You don't trust that you'll be okay if you pick wrong. You don't trust that even if you fail, you'll recover. You don't trust that you'll still be lovable if you commit to something imperfect. And so you overthink, you overanalyze, you spend so long trying to choose the best path that the path itself disappears under your feet. And what you're left with is not possibility, it's paralysis. This is why people feel more anxious than ever, even though we have more comfort, more luxury, more technology than at any point in human history. Because we no longer feel held by life, we feel abandoned in an ocean of endless coulds and shoulds. And that abandonment is what's breaking you. There is a kind of peace that comes from limits, from constraints, from being told no. And you don't hear that anymore. You're expected to figure it all out alone. But the soul was never meant to be its own God. You were never meant to carry the burden of infinite freedom. You're supposed to bump into walls. You're supposed to be grounded by your roots. You're supposed to surrender to a rhythm. That's what gives shape to your being. That's what makes life feel solid again. But instead, your life feels like fog, and you're trying to sculpt it with your bare hands. You're not failing because you're weak. You're drowning because you're swimming in water that was never meant to be swum alone. You look at love, and the same sickness shows up. You wonder if you've settled, if you could have found someone who challenges you more, soothes you more, excites you more, and the question starts spinning. What if you met the right person at the wrong time? What if the one slipped away while you weren't looking? What if your standards are too high? What if they're too low? But love isn't a search. It's a surrender. And the longer you stay in search mode, the more you treat people like puzzles to solve instead of lives to join. You want perfect, but perfect can't hold your hand when you're broken. You want ideal, but ideal won't carry you when your legs give out. What you really want is to be known, not in fragments, but fully. And that kind of knowing requires choosing one person long enough for your souls to tangle, for your stories to overlap, for your wounds to be seen, not filtered, not edited, not hidden, but seen and held. That doesn't happen when you chase options. That happens when you stay. And yes, staying is risky, but so is drifting. You think not choosing will save you from pain, but it doesn't. It just spreads the pain out over time, makes it dull and constant instead of sharp and transformational. Because pain, when felt fully, has a way of burning clarity into your bones. And clarity is the thing you've been starving for. Not more choice, just clarity. A sense that you're allowed to be here, that this is your life, that this moment is enough, not because it's perfect, but because it's real. The more you try to optimize your life like a tech product, the more it breaks down, because you are not a machine. You are a soul, a fragile, beautiful, chaotic, finite soul And the soul doesn't run on efficiency, it runs on depth, on connection, on being seen and known in the spaces where you've stopped performing. But when you never choose, you never let yourself be seen. Because people can't love a version of you that's still buffering, and neither can you. It's time to stop treating your life like a menu. Stop evaluating it like a review. Stop waiting for the feeling to make the decision for you. Because feelings don't create commitment, commitment creates feelings. The more you give yourself to something, the more beauty you find inside it. And yes, that means losing out on other things. But loss is not the enemy. Regret is not the enemy. The real enemy is emptiness. The hollow ache of never having truly belonged to anything. You're not meant to hover above life. You're meant to dig in. Choose your limits. Say yes, and let everything else fall away. It's not settling. That's becoming. There's a reason monks take vows of silence. There's a reason poets live in tiny cottages, musicians disappear into cabins, and hermits retreat to the mountains. It's not because they're rejecting the world. It's because they're creating conditions to hear their own voice again. And that voice, the one buried beneath the noise of modern life, it doesn't crave options. It craves presence, stillness, focus. But your world doesn't reward stillness. It rewards speed. It rewards novelty. It rewards those who can juggle the most, do the most, sample the most. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, it trains you to believe that depth is a kind of laziness, that loyalty is a kind of ignorance, that choosing one path means you've missed the chance to be great on all the others. But greatness doesn't come from chasing everything, it comes from giving everything to something. You can't be everywhere, you can't know everything, you can't live 1,000 lives, you only get this one. And if you keep hoarding possibilities, you'll never live any of them fully. You'll be haunted by the shadows of lives you could have had, but never dared to touch. You'll look back at a decade and realize you've been circling the same indecisions, watching others build, love, fail, rebuild, while you stay in the waiting room of your own life, hoping certainty will arrive, like a letter in the mail. But certainty isn't coming. It never was. Because real decisions aren't made with certainty, they are made with courage. The courage to say, I don't know how this ends, but I'm choosing it anyway. The courage to say, I might get hurt, but I want to feel something real. The courage to say, I choose this, not because it's flawless, but because it's mine. And here's the sacred irony. Once you choose, life starts choosing you back. The people around you feel safer. They open up. They lean in. The world stops spinning just fast enough for you to catch your breath. The noise quiets. The what-ifs soften. And in that quiet, you begin to feel something you haven't felt in a long time. Peace. Not the peace of comfort, the peace of presence. That's what the human heart longs for. Not more, just enough. Not everything, just something real enough to belong to. We live in a culture obsessed with optimization, with upgrades, with always chasing the next level. But at what cost? You've seen it, you've felt it. The endless scroll that leaves you numb, the mental fatigue of constant comparison, the low-grade anxiety that hums beneath even your best moments because you're wondering if you could have been somewhere else, with someone else, doing something better. That hum has a name, dislocation. You are not where your feet are. Your body is here, but your mind is scattered across 10 timelines. And that fracture, that dislocation, is why you feel hollow. You can't build a life if you're never fully in it. And that means choosing boldly, imperfectly, beautifully. Choosing to stay when it's easier to drift. Choosing to be seen when it's easier to scroll. Choosing to risk heartbreak for the chance at real love. Choosing to pour your energy into one dream instead of half-trying 10. You are not a browser tab. You are not a spreadsheet. You are a breathing, breaking, becoming thing. You are not made to calculate your worth by comparison. You are not designed to constantly optimize yourself like a product. You are allowed to rest inside your own life. You are allowed to choose something and let it be enough. And no, the pain won't disappear, regret won't disappear, doubt won't disappear, but neither will beauty, neither will grace. Neither will the quiet, powerful joy of looking around and realizing, this is my life. Not the best life, not the perfect life, just my life. The one I've shaped with love and intention and mistakes and persistence. The one that feels lived, not previewed. The one where I stopped sampling and started belonging. This is not a call to settle. This is a call to come home. Home to your body, home to your breath, home to the one imperfect path that can finally become yours if you stop waiting for something better. Let it be enough. Let this be the moment you finally close the other tabs and begin